Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, Mr. Mohammed and everyone. We are from Group 5 Ecology Population. We will present our topic is Biogeography, and our member is Muhammad Wibowo, Amanda Faiza Anjani, and Granpio Joven. Okay, and the first one is habitat linkage. Environmental variables are distributed across space, their combination forming habitat that are differentially used by different species. Population track in the heterogeneity in their environmental, either actively when individuals navigate the landscape in search of suitable habitat, or passively when disappear settle at habitat that differentially affect their survival and reproduction. These processes are tightly linked. Increase in population density will tend to lower local fitness and additionally cause some individuals to move to suboptimal habitat, directly impacting the overall ability of the population to grow. Conceptual link between the makeup of the environment and the dynamic of population that lives in it. Habitat availability describes the amount of all habitats that are accessible to an organism. The suitable of different habitat gives rise to an organism spatial distribution. Across different locations, organisms might experience different conditions, access different amount of resources, and be subjected to different degrees of risk. These experiences of individuals determine their fitness. The collective measure of fitness for the entire population determines annual rates of population growth and subsequent population dynamic. Population density then feeds back into population dynamic, but it may also affect habitat availability to resource depletion or niche engineering. Spatial distribution took behavior response to crowding, and fitness took demographic responses to crowding. Note, all the suitable of different habitat is a characteristic of species and therefore cannot be changed by population density. This is the picture of conceptual link between the makeup of the environment and the dynamic of a population that lives in it. Spatial dynamics of population. Insect populations show considerable spatial variation in densities in response to geographic variation in habitat condition and resource quality. Variation can be occur over relatively small scales because of the small size of insects and their sensitivity to environmental gradients. The general types of spatial variation are represented by the expansion of growing population and by the discontinuous pattern of fragmented population or metapopulations.
First, expanding populations. The speed at which a population expands likely affects the efficiency of density-dependent regulatory factors. Populations that expand slowly may experience immediate density-dependent negative feedback in zones of high density, whereas induction of negative feedback may be delayed in rapidly expanding populations as dispersal slows and increase in density. For example, rapidly expanding populations may leave diseased individuals behind, thereby escaping a major mortality factor along the expanding front. Therefore, density-dependent factors should operate with a longer time lag in populations capable of rapid dispersal during eruptive population growth. The speed, extent, and duration of population spread are determined by abiotic and biotic factors. The duration of population expansion also depends on several factors. The duration of population spread is constrained by environmental gradients, by wind or waterfall, and by unsuitable patches, gradients in temperatures, moistures, or chemical concentrations restrict the direction in which insect populations can spread, based on tolerance range to this factor. Furthermore, direction and flow rate of wind or water have considerable influence of insect movement. Insects with limited capability to move against air or water currents whereas insects capable of movement toward attractive peers move primarily upwind or upstream. Heterogeneous landscapes tend to limit population growth and spread, whereas more homogeneous landscapes, such as large areas devoted to plantation forestry, pasture grasses, or major crops, provide conditions more conducive to sustain population growth and spread. Second is metapopulation dynamics. A metapopulation is population composed of relatively isolated teams maintained by some degree of dispersal among suitable patches. Metapopulation structure can be identified at various scales, depending on the scale of distribution and dispersal ability of the population. This is a diagrammatic representation of different metapopulation models. The spatial patterns of metapopulations reflects a number of interesting factors, including patch size, isolation, and quality. Insect dispersal ability largely determines gene flow, species viability, and perhaps evolution of life history strategies. Species adapted to relatively unstable habitats typically have higher reproductive rates and greater dispersal capabilities than the species adapted to more stable habitats. Hence, human-dominated ecosystems are likely to favor population growth of species adapted to disturbed habitats, at the expense of species adapted to more stable habitats. Human activities affect spatial dynamics of population in several ways. Climate changes eventually will force many species to shift their geographic range or face extinctions as changing temperatures and humidity exceed tolerance range or alter energy balance in the current range. Fragmentation of terrestrial ecosystem, alterations and pollution of aquatic ecosystem, and redistribution of species arguably are the most serious and immediate immediate threats to ecosystem worldwide.
Models of spatial dynamics. The earliest attempt to model spatial dynamics either applied diffusion models to describe insect dispersal and population spread from population center. Proved in Randor 1985, Scalam 1951, Turchin 1998, or modeled population dynamics independently among individual landscape patches based on local condition within each patch and patches by dispersal process. Diffusion model assume that the environment is homogeneous and that individual dispersal independently and with equal probability in any direction. The diffusion approach is useful for modeling spatial dynamic of insect is in storage grain or relatively homogeneous crop system but less useful in most natural landscape where patchiness interrupts diffusion. Advances in spatial modeling have been facilitated by the development of powerful computers that can store and manipulate large datasets. Concurrent development of geographic positioning system or GPS and geographic information system or GIS and, geostatistical software has been a key to describe insect movement. 1998 in population epidemiology live Livehold et al 1993 across landscape. A GIS is an integrated set of programs that facilitate collection, storage, manipulation, and analysis of geographically reference data such as photographic vegetation type and density, and insect population density. Data for a particular set of coordinates can be represented as a value for a cell. In each cell in the matrix is given a value. This method is called the raster method. A second method that requires less storage space is the vector method, in which only data representing the verticals of polygons containing data must be stored. Various metrics representing different map layers can be superimposed to analysis interaction. For example, a map layer representing insect population distribution can be superimposed condition disturbance or photographic to evaluate the effect of patchiness or gradients in these factors on the spatial dynamics of the insect population. Geostatic are a means of interpolating the most probable population densities between sample points in order to improve the representation of spatial distribution over landscape. Early attempts to characterize spatial patterns were based on modification of Taylor's power law, Lloyd's patchiness index, and Awas patchiness regression coefficient labeled it. This indicates focus on frequency distribution of sample and are useful for identifying dispersal patterns, but ignore the spatial location of sample. Modeling spatial dynamic across landscape requires information in the location of sampling points, as well as population density data. The location of population aggregation affect densities in adjacent cell. Caution 1996 labeled in Elkington 1989. Development of geographic positioning system has facilitated facilitated the incorporation of precise sample location in GIS database. Thank you.